The heavy iron gate of Gurganj collapses inward, sending a cloud of pulverized stone and bone dust into the lungs of the survivors. It is April 1221, and the Khwarezmian Empire is ending not with a scream, but with a sorting. You are kneeling in the gray ash, watching Genghis Khan's cavalry ride through the breach, their horses stepping carefully over the debris. Here, the terror is not the sword, but the calculation. What Genghis Khan did to his slaves shocked even his own generals, men who had drunk blood on the steppes. This was not simple servitude. It was the weaponization of human biology. A Mongol officer approaches the line of trembling captives, holding a grease-stained object, the linchpin of a heavy cart axle. It is the only judge that matters today. This wooden peg will determine who fuels the war machine and who feeds the earth. Why did the Khan demand a cruelty so precise that it unnerved his closest commanders? And what hidden purpose did these broken bodies serve in the architecture of his new world? To be spared is only the beginning of the horror. If you enjoy these dark histories, leave a like and subscribe and comment below where you're listening from. And now, back to the story. The dust of Gurganj settles, but the movement never stops. The sorting is finished. The skilled artisans, weavers, smiths, astronomers are bound and sent east toward Karakoram to serve the court. They are the prized cattle, destined for a life of gilded servitude. You are not among them. You remain with the main host, herded into a mass of humanity that has no name, only a function. The Mongols call this the hashar, a word that tastes of dust and expendability. There are no heavy iron chains here, only the open steppe and the certainty that to run is to be hunted for sport. The control is absolute. You are stripped of your city, your kin, and finally, your clothing. Nakedness is the first uniform of the damned. A Mongol overseer rides past, noting the strength in your shoulders not with admiration, but with the cold appraisal of a carpenter inspecting a plank. You are no longer a citizen of the Khwarezmian Empire. You are a unit of kinetic energy waiting to be spent. The march is silent. To speak is to invite the whip, a braided strip of leather that cracks like dry thunder. The only sound is the rhythmic thud of thousands of feet and the creaking of the siege engines, huge hulking catapults dismantled and carried on the backs of camels and men. You are forced to carry the very stones that will be used to crush the next city on the itinerary. The psychological weight is heavier than the granite. You are the beast of burden for your own people's destruction. Even the Mongol generals, men born to the saddle and the bow, watch this procession with a strange unease. They are warriors who value the clash of steel. But this is not war. It is an industrial process of erasure. Does the hammer mourn the nail it strikes? Yet, within this crushing, anonymity, a quiet will to resist survives. It is not found in shouts or clenched fists, but in the friction of skin against stone. When an old man stumbles under a load of timber, you shift your shoulder to take the weight. You do not look at him, you only look at the ground. The overseer sees this small transfer of burden. He does not strike. He merely watches, calculating how much more work can be extracted from a bond between slaves. It is a terrifying realization. Even your compassion is a resource they have accounted for. Then comes the offer of mercy, delivered with a smile that does not reach the eyes. The army halts before the walls of a new city, perhaps Nishapur or Herat. The moat is wide, deep, and filled with stagnant water. The general points to the bundles of wood and sacks of sand piled nearby. Fill it, the order comes down. Work, and you shall eat tonight. It sounds like salvation. It sounds like a chance to survive one more day. But as you lift the first bundle, looking up at the archers on the walls who wear the same clothes you once wore, you realize the true cost. To eat their bread, you must kill your kin. The condition is stated not with a scroll or a proclamation, but with the point of a lance. The Mongol officer gestures toward the city walls of Nishapur, now looming high and terrible above the plain. The moat is a gaping mouth that must be fed. The order is absolute: advance and fill the ditch, or remain and be put to the sword where you stand. There is no middle ground, no negotiation, and no prison cell waiting for the conscientious objector. You either convert to the logic of the siege, or you vanish. The air is thick with the smell of wet earth and impending violence. The defenders on the ramparts, men you might have traded with in the markets only weeks ago, are stringing their bows. They look down at the mass of hashar approaching them. They hesitate. They see the faces of their neighbors, their cousins, the very people they are sworn to protect. The Mongols are counting on this hesitation. It is a psychological breach before the physical one. A tanner from the old quarter, a man whose hands are stained permanently dark from walnut husks, stops. He drops his bundle of brushwood. He does not scream defiance or call upon God. He simply looks at the Mongol captain and says, "I will not." The response is immediate. A curved saber flashes, severing the tanner's neck. He falls into the mud, his silence more deafening than his refusal. The line does not stop. It shuffles over him. The lesson is etched into the minds of the living. Autonomy is a fatal defect. As the first wave reaches the moat's edge, the hesitation on the walls breaks. The defenders must fire, or the city falls. The arrows begin to rain down, not on the Mongol warriors waiting safely out of range, but on you. The cruelty of the Khan's design becomes fully clear. He has forced the Khwarezmians to slaughter their own people to buy a few hours of safety. Mercy is a mask for efficiency. The pressure escalates. The bundles of wood run out. The sacks of sand are gone. But the moat is not yet full. The Mongol drums change their rhythm, a faster, more urgent beat. The officers begin to push the hashar directly into the water. The distinction between the laborer and the material has dissolved. You are no longer carrying the debris. You are the debris. This is the revelation that chilled the blood of the generals. To the Khan, a captured population is not a prize to be ruled, nor even a workforce to be exploited. They are ammunition. The why is terrifyingly simple. Preservation of Mongol life. Every arrow that strikes a slave is an arrow that does not strike a trooper. Every body that fills the moat is a bridge for a Mongol horse. The price of your survival is to become the pavement for your enemy's victory. And yet, in this abyss, a strange inversion occurs. The screaming stops. The pleading fades. A collective numbness takes hold of the survivors. A discipline forged in the absolute absence of hope. You stop flinching at the whistle of arrows. You throw the stones. You pile the earth. You step over the fallen with a mechanical precision. The intent was to break your spirit, to reduce you to panic. Instead, it has hardened you into something like iron, cold, unfeeling, and silent. You have become exactly what the Khan required, a tool that does not feel pain. The moat fills. The water is choked with wood, stone, and the gray tunics of the fallen. The path is clear. The Mongol heavy cavalry begins to trot forward, their hooves thudding on the bridge you built with your brothers' bodies. The bridge is made of bone. The smoke over Nishapur does not clear for days. It hangs heavy and oily, a shroud woven from the burning beams of the citadel and the pyres of the uncounted. The Mongol host does not linger to govern the graveyard they have created. They are nomads, driven by the grass and the seasons. They take the artisans, the gold, and the horses, and they turn their backs on the ruin. You are left standing in the mud of the filled moat. The noise of the drums has faded into the east, replaced by the wind whistling through the gaps in the broken walls. This is your rebirth. You have been discarded. The machine has extracted your labor, used your body to dampen the shock of the assault, and now, finding you unbroken but exhausted, it leaves you behind. You are not a citizen, nor a slave, nor a soldier. You are a ghost inhabiting a world that has been legally and physically erased. You wander through the debris field, your feet numb. In the slush, half buried under a shattered gate, you find it again. The wooden axle pin. The grease is gone, stripped away by fire and grit, leaving only dry, cracked timber. It is no longer a tool of measurement or judgment. It is merely trash. You pick it up. It weighs nothing, yet it holds the memory of the sorting at Gurganj. The survivor is just a witness, waiting to die. There are no prayers spoken here. The magnitude of the loss has rendered language obsolete. You find the spot where the tanner fell, the man who refused the order. There is no body to bury. The cavalry has trampled the earth into a uniform paste of bone and clay. Instead, you perform a wordless rite. You take the wooden pin and drive it into the soft earth where the moat once was. You place a single white stone next to it. It is not a monument, it is a receipt, a marker that says, "We were here, and we were used." Decades later, the Persian historian Adam Malik Juvaini will ride through this same province. He is a servant of the Mongol court, a man of ink and letters, tasked with recording the glory of the Ilkhanate. But when he reaches the site of these sieges, his pen falters. In his chronicle, The History of the World Conqueror, he does not describe a glorious battlefield. He describes mountains of bones, so vast they serve as landmarks for travelers. He writes that the soil itself seemed greasy with human fat. Here lies the hidden truth that unsettled even the Khan's own generals, the why that explains the industrial cruelty. The generals, raised on the code of the steppes, believed in the sanctity of the warrior's death. That blood was the currency of honor. But Genghis Khan had discovered a new truth. Honor is inefficient. By using the hashar, the Khan did not just save Mongol lives, he preserved the Mongol myth. His soldiers appeared invincible because they rarely fought the attrition battles. They arrived only for the killing blow, walking over a carpet of slaves. The shock was not moral, it was professional. The Khan had rendered the bravery of his own generals irrelevant. He had proved that a city could be taken not by courage, but by the sheer, overwhelming application of disposable biomass. The empire was not built on the strength of the Mongol bow, but on the calculated expenditure of the captive population. The stone you placed is gone, swallowed by the mud, but the lesson remains in the earth. What is buried in the silence eventually grows teeth. The scribes of the Ilkhanate eventually dip their reeds into the ink to tally the cost of the conquest. They list the cities taken: Bukhara, Samarkand, Urgench. They list the loot: gold dinars, bolts of silk, herds of mares. But the column for the dead is left blank, or filled with hyperboles so vast they lose all meaning. 1,700,000, they write of Nishapur. It is a number so large it becomes static, white noise that hides the individual scream of the tanner, the weaver, the father. The erasure is total. Whole dialects vanish from the human tongue. Techniques for glazing blue tile, passed down for 10 generations, are extinguished in a single afternoon because the master potter was used to fill a ditch. The cultural memory of Central Asia is lobotomized. The mountains of bone that Juvaini saw are eventually ground down by the wind, and the rain returning to the soil to feed the grass for the Mongol horses. The circle of consumption is closed. The biological energy of the Khwarezmian Empire has been transmuted into the borders of the Mongol Empire. Travelers in the region, centuries later, still speak of the wind of wrath. They say that in the high passes, when the air is thin and cold, you can hear not the clash of armies, but the shuffling of bare feet on stone. It is the sound of 1,000,000 ghosts carrying the weight of their own doom, a procession that marches forever, just beyond the edge of sight. And now we return to the image at the gate of Gurganj. The dust has long since settled. The grease-stained axle pin, that simple wooden arbiter of life and death, has rotted away into the steppe. But the shadow it cast remains. The sorting did not end in 1221. The logic of the hashar, the reduction of a human being to a unit of kinetic energy, was a discovery too potent to be forgotten. It waits in the archives of history, a blueprint for efficiency that tyrants have studied ever since. You are no longer kneeling in the ash. You are standing in the safety of the present. But if you listen closely to the silence, past the comfort of your own walls, you can still hear it. The heavy, rhythmic thud of feet marching into the moat. The sound of a world being built on the backs of the disposable. Subscribe, hit the bell, and like. The Khan is dead, but the axle still turns.